Rick was telling me on the phone, he's like, hey, RB just fell. And I'm like, how far? And start asking these questions. I'm like, is he moving? And I was asking him a bunch of questions that he didn't really have good answers for. And he said, well, TJ's talking to him. And that was two big things.
Yeah.
He's talking, and TJ's here.
Mm-hmm.
So I trust TJ, and I was like, oh, well, he's got the same training I've got. So then I just focused on driving the log truck like a rocket.
Yeah, TJ got right in my face. I think I was unconscious for just a few seconds or something. I don't know. And when I was gathering my thoughts and figuring out what's broke, TJ was right in my face, and he said, I got you.
Yeah. That's a powerful statement.
That was.
And you called me because we had just left. We had had lunch with him, and you called me, and I was asking you the same things you were asking Rick, but you were trying to make it not sound so terrible. So you said, I think he's all right. And, of course, you didn't know, but you had to tell me that, so I didn't drive like a rocket back.
Yeah. I knew to pretend to be super calm. I don't know if it worked out real good or not.
It worked out real good because when I drove up, I thought, well, I'm here, and I would go check, make sure he's okay. But I didn't think it was bad. But when I saw Rick standing there to tell me where to go, he wouldn't make eye contact.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just followed him, and I saw you talking. And I thought, if you're talking, you're okay. So.
I must not be dead. Yep. I know when I was laying there, I was thinking something is probably broke, because one of the guys said I bounced about a foot. My shoulder area bounced about a foot when I hit, and that was Bill Manley. And
Bill Manley was there.
yeah, and I was moving stuff real easy to see if I could figure if anything was broke, and then my right leg didn't want to move because my pelvic was broke right in the socket. And luckily, Dr. McIntyre was on. He was available.
Yeah,
and,
I think they call it on rotation.
Yep, and he operated on it the next morning, and he showed me a picture on the X-ray. Well, he showed me the X-ray, and he said, "You see this?" He said, "This is what we shoot for. This is the best you can get." He said, "You see all those curves? They're perfect." He said, "That's what we shoot for." It went together perfect. So that gave me a real good feeling.
Sure.
He was so smart. And then he said, "I can fix your wrist, too." He said, "I saw an X-ray of your wrist." He said, "I don't usually do wrist, but I can do your wrist if you want to." I said, "Yeah, let's go for it." And he showed me a bunch of plates that you can put in your wrist, and the one that he was going to put in there, it looked like God made that plate. That plate was smooth on all the edges and had a little concave. It was like it was perfectly made for that wrist.
That's cool.
And then when I went to him several years later, he said, on a scale of 1 to 10, how is the pain in your wrist? I said, "Pain?" He said, "Yeah, what's the pain in your wrist?"
Yeah.
0 to 10. I said, 0. I don't even think about it. He said, "Great." So he succeeded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
So
got to
that-
be a win, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, did you have that taken out?
No, it's still in there. It's fine.
How about that?
Yeah. How about the other one? Did you break one wrist twice, or
I broke one twice. Yeah.
yeah? Did you
I'm
have
keeping
to?
one good.
Yeah. Yeah. One original equipment and one modified.
Yeah.
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 The femur rod is the one you had taken out.
Yeah.
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 It just felt like it didn't need to be in there.
Yeah, I've read stuff on it. If you get on a wreck or something and that leg, that bone is supposed to break or something in a wreck and it doesn't break because that rod's in there, it tears out one end or the other in your joints and stuff. So it's very much more
I wouldn't
complicated.
want that in there either.
So I didn't want that in there.
Mm.
And I told them I wanted to keep that rod if they would save it for me, and they did. And the reason I wanted it out was for that. I didn't want it in there, but then I had a sharp pain if I would bump something. So when they took it out, I wanted to keep it. And when they gave it to me, I saw why I had the sharp pain. I think they had one guy working there was from the circus when they set the tents up,
Mm-hmm.
and they tapped that thing with a sledgehammer. It was flattened out on one side and had sharp edges, and that's what hurt. Yeah.
I bet so.
I wonder if all this that we've talked about, people know what we're talking about that are watching, because not everybody knows that he fell out of a tree in what year? 12.
Yeah, 2012. Yep.
October 25th, 2012.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. That was a heck of a day.
Yep. 30 feet. You said you measured it from where my spurs were.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I went back a couple of days later to finish the job,
Yeah.
and I found where your spurs were,
Yeah.
and then went up to where your lanyard would be, and I figured that was
Yeah, my
that's-
spurs were coming down on that tree. They weren't coming up because I'd moved from one tree to another
yeah.
tree.
I just saw the couple of spots, you
Yeah.
know, where you had stood for a second. So,
Yep.
yeah.
When I started going backwards and I realized that my lanyard was not hooked and I was falling backwards, I was looking, trying to find something to grab, and there was nothing. And then I was looking at the ground to see where I'm going to land. Is there any motion I should do to change position of my body? And I thought, no, this is going to be as good as it can get. It's just going to hurt.
Yeah.
So I hit flat on my right side and bounced a little bit.
Mm.
And thought of a lot of other stuff on the way down.
Yeah.
Did-
It's
Did
crazy.
your-
Huh?
Did your life flash before your eyes going down?
Well, not really, but it's amazing how many things go through your mind. It's what's going to break, and there's a chance you can die on this one. And you probably won't, but
So death didn't whisper in your ear like
no,
it
did not.
did
No.
when you swallowed the pill the other day.
No, I did not. I did not think about dying on that one
How
because
about that?
I was hitting on something that if I'd have hit on cement, that would have been it. But hitting on ground is so much better, and more pine straw, the better.
I
Yeah.
wonder if the decision in your mind, like, I'm probably going to die on this one, is what starts that process of thinking your life flashing before your eyes.
Yeah.
If you've never had that happen, have you had it?
I haven't, but I've heard you talk about it when you fell out of the tree.
Yeah. Scott told me about it
When he fell out.
when he fell, and then when I fell, I thought about everything in the world that was important to me, including his conversation telling me about all the stuff he talked about. And it was all in real time, smell, color.
Yeah.
Like, it's each memory is not a flash. Like, to describe it, it was a really short period of time. And now looking back, it was a flash, but each memory in the moment was full color, time, shape, smell,
Yep.
everything. Like, Scott, when Scott told me he fell, I was in his bedroom listening to him tell the story. He had got back from the hospital, and when he was telling me the story, one of the visions in his, what he saw, I was there and I remembered it, and we were all playing kickball in Uncle Jimmy's front yard.
Uh-huh.
And this kid that had grabbed onto his dad's pickup truck. Do y'all remember that story where he?
Yeah.
So that guy drove by. I don't know if it was the same truck or not, but Scott stopped the game and pulled me over and showed me the guy driving by and told me what happened, because I had tried to grab Dad's truck and ride behind it,
Oh.
and he wanted to make sure I knew that that's no good. So when he told me all the stuff he thought about, that was one of his moments that he remembered, and I remembered it so well that I could remember, like, the grass. Uncle Jimmy had thick grass in his front yard, like all those little weird details, you know.
Yeah.
And then when I fell and thought about all my other stuff, that was like this moment that was within another moment, and it was all, you know, the conversation of him telling me, and then flashing over and thinking about that, all that stuff in what,
So
15
you
feet.
thought you could die when
I
you.
was convinced, like, I knew that I was going to die. Yeah, it wasn't like a maybe. And then when I got closer to the ground, I remembered my theory that you as long as you just say no or stop, you don't have to, you can't get hurt. It was flawed, but so I thought I can, as long as I can just last one more second, then I'll make it. And so I tried. But yeah, just for the whole fall, I was like, oh, this is it. This is how it went. I wasn't nearly as focused as.
And so did Jeff save your life by lifting you up?
I don't know. It sure felt like it. Yeah, he come bouncing through the little bushes and stuff there, and I still had some adrenaline, so I was pushing and trying to be upright, and the chainsaw was running, and he got over to me. He's like asking me, "Are you okay? You okay?" As he gets closer, and I pointed at the saw. I hate hearing a saw run, and it was. I already had too much information to process. I didn't want any extra, so I pointed at the saw, and he cut it off. It was a 44, big tree, So my adrenaline ran out, and I just kind of slunk down. That's a fun word to use. And then he got up under me and kind of hugged me, but held me upright, and I couldn't breathe at all. The whole time I had adrenaline and was trying to figure out what was going on, I was trying to breathe, but it wouldn't work. And he held me upright, and I guess he could sense that I couldn't breathe, and he was like trying to get me to calm down and, asking me questions, but of course I couldn't answer. And I remember, I don't know time-wise, but it felt like a long time, but I got a little, and I tried to pull on that, and it shut down again, so I had to relax and then let a little bit come in. And, yeah, it was quite the event.
I had that happen as a 12-year-old playing on a swing set that was way too little for me. So I was standing in the swing, rocking back and forth, and Teresa was with me. And somehow I turned loose of the swing and flopped on the ground, and the air went completely out of me. And Teresa helped me get up. And I remember that.
It tastes so good, don't it?
And it got a little bit better and a little bit better. So.
Was that on Oleander Drive?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the swing set was on between the store and that shopping center.
Oh, yeah. That shopping center probably wasn't there.
No, the shopping center wasn't there.
Was the theater property there?
Yeah, the theater was there when we moved there in, I'd say, 53.
What took so long to move there? So didn't he buy the property in like 48 or 49, somewhere in there?
No, I don't think so. I think he bought it, and they had a house. We lived in the house in Sunset Park, and we moved to a store on 3rd Street that we lived on top of, and he needed a better store. So he found that property and built the store. The store wasn't there.
What year, Rita?
I was 10, and I was born in 46, so it was 56.
Yeah.
All right. I had my timeline off a little bit. I thought that it was sooner. For some reason, I got it in my head that it was shortly after war that he found it and got it, but I guess it was a few years later.
Yeah, it was a few years, and we moved in, and the store we lived in upstairs had absolutely no yard, so it was wonderful to have a yard. And he was a fanatic about grass, so he had He had it all grassed up. Now between you and Michael, you can't find a grass blade.
Yeah. So before the store on 3rd Street, Sunset Park.
Yes.
What was that house? What kind of house was it?
It was a beautiful old house.
On Central Boulevard.
Not anything elaborate at all, but it had columns in it. It was real pretty.
Do you happen to remember the address?
506 Central
We
Boulevard.
rode by and looked at it a few weeks ago. We stopped and looked at it.
So from that house to
3rd Street.
3rd Street. How old were you at 3rd Street?
4th grade. How old are you?
10.
Yeah,
So
probably.
I must have been
9 or 10.
11 when I went to, because we No, we moved when I was in the 4th grade, but they took me back and forth to finish out 4th grade in Mrs. Wood's class, and Teresa was in the 1st grade, so they didn't want to change our school. And Mrs. Wood was the teacher that told me that God loved me and that I was special. And of course, she told the whole class, but I was listening for me. And I would remember walking home from lunch at my house and thinking, God knows who I am. And that made Mrs. Wood special. I've always remembered her name.
How about that? That's good of her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Was she the one that wanted her son to marry you later on?
No, that was, Miss Ashley. She had me in the 3rd grade, and I was the perfect angel. I always made A's on conduct because I never did anything wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And when I could date her, I met her son at the grocery store, and she must have talked about me because he recognized my name when we introduced ourselves, and he asked me out on a date, and I went, but I didn't have any fun.
How old were you at Sunset Park? Like, were you?
Sunset Park.
Was that from the beginning?
Got there when I was about 3 or 4, and left there when I was
In 4th grade.
yeah.
Yeah. So, where were you born? Well, at a hospital, I hope.
James Walker Hospital, that's not there anymore, and went home to Jackie's Creek in Leland.
So, in 1946, that's the war's over.
Yeah.
So you were part of that baby boomer.
I was the leading edge of the baby boomers. I think 46 is the leading edge, and then it goes, I don't know how far it goes.
Probably to 49, I would think.
I heard that there's going to be a pandemic baby boom because of people having to stay home.
That's probably a pretty good guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And her dad made that house by hand over in Leland.
In Jackie's Creek, he cut down the trees, took them to the sawmill, and put them together to make a decent-looking house. I've seen a picture of it. Looked pretty good. I hardly remember anything because I was so little.
Yeah. How about that? So he was, that's how he got his citizenship, is that right? By participating in World War II?
No.
No.
He came over here from Italy when he was 12. His father had come over here about 3 years before he did. He was born in 1916. He came over when he was 12, so you can do that math. But his father had to have a place for them to live and money to support them. There was no government programs.
They got here just in time for the Great Depression.
Oh, how about
Yeah,
that?
because if the math is right, 16, 12, 1928.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
You ever
did-
heard that expression, harder than times in 29? Yeah,
Uh-huh.
apparently 29 was tough.
I've never heard any stories about the Great Depression. I heard stories about the school because they didn't speak English, and they had to go to school and learn English, but they still went to school. And I guess that's where they learned English, was at school.
Yeah, immersion. They just got pushed into the system. Huh. I wonder if the Great Depression was harder on people who had money before, and people that didn't have money, they just still didn't have money.
That's right.
Well, I know that I've seen on TV bread lines. So people...
And soup lines.
Yeah. So lots of people were in bread and soup lines.
Yeah, maybe the city settings were so much harder because you can't just go hunting or
Yeah.
grow your own stuff on your...
Yeah.
Yeah.
My mom was on a farm, and they were poor all the time, so the Depression didn't make that much of a difference. They had a smokehouse, and they raised hogs, and he was a farmer, and that's what they had as food, was what they grew. And the smokehouse had all the hams that they would kill the hogs and put the hams in. And when I was little, the smokehouse was old and kind of battered by then, so there was slats between the boards, and you could peep in through and see the hams hanging and the smoke going up, and I guess that preserved them. I don't. Oh, it was salt that preserved them. They were country hams.
Yeah. Man, that's neat.
And my mama said that she didn't have any good dresses to wear to school, but she had a decent coat. So she wore a coat all the time over her dress. And she took biscuits and country ham to school. And now people would be tickled to have a country ham biscuit at school. But she felt terrible because everybody else had what she called light bread that was new, loaves of bread cut in sections. That was something new then. And
sliced bread.
And meat in between, which was considered a luxury.
Along that same time, 1946, 47. That's one of the earliest memories I have of hearing the mule coming down the street
Yeah.
with a wagon behind it.
Where were you? What?
In Mount Olive, down that big house.
Oh,
I
yeah.
showed you. Yep. We could hear the mule coming, and they'd stop out front and had a cover over his ice. And he'd take an ice pick and chip out what size piece of ice you wanted. And then he'd take the tongs and grab the ice up and walk up steps and come in the kitchen and put it in the ice box. And we'd take a little bitty piece of ice out and put the new one in there. It was an ice box for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My grandmother had an ice box. And my earliest memory was when Teresa was little and she was a baby and she wouldn't take her milk. So my mother told me that she was going to put Cairo syrup in her milk so that she would drink it. I said, I want some in my milk. She said, no, it'll give you worms.
Wouldn't bother the baby though, right?
Yeah, give me worms. That's funny. So, Jackie's Creek to Sunset Park to the 3rd Street to Oleander Drive. And then, what year did you guys meet?
62, I think.
Yeah, I had just turned 16 in September, and we met in the 1st of December, I think.
I think so.
And I couldn't date, so I told Mama and Daddy that I was going with Carol to a Christmas play. And we went.
You lied?
Yeah, I lied. And I dated Dad, and he wanted to date me again. I was amazed because here I was, a 16-year-old little kid, and he was in the military. And what were you, about 20 years old? 20.
I was 21 or 2, I think. Yeah. I had just been transferred from Montgomery, Alabama to Goldsboro, Seymour Johnson. So then I was driving back and forth to Mom's on the weekends to stay at the weekend at the house, and eat Mom's cooking and all. And one of those weekends, after a few weeks or months, I don't know how long, I was changing the oil in the front yard in the ditch. It was a shallow ditch, as you could drive the car right over it and straddle it, and then you had room to, you didn't have to jack it up or nothing. You could just shimmy underneath it and put the oil pan down there and, drain the oil out. And I was doing that, and I heard a car drive up across the street where Mom lived, and I leaned down and looked to see what was coming up. And there was like 3 or 4 girls in the car.
I think there was 4.
I think there was 2, and they hollered for me to come over there, so I shimmied out and walked over there, and they introduced me to the girls, and then the ones in the back, and
Who was driving the car?
Johnny, I'm pretty sure. Jack's wife, Johnny.
Yeah.
Yeah. And after they left, they said, "You want let's triple date tonight?" Jack had a wide Pontiac Catalina, I think, a beautiful car, wide seats, and not bucket seats, just wide seats.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we were going to triple date, and they said, "Those girls in the back seat, which one did you rather date?" And I said, as I walked up to the car, the one in the back on my side, and they said, "Okay, that's Rita." I said, "Okay, yeah, that's good." So that's how it started.
And to this day, when he gives me a hug, he says, "I'll take this one."
That's awesome.
Yep. And I've always told her, "I'll take the one with the pretty brown eyes and the good-looking ass."
That's me.
Yay. That's so funny. Born in 1946, born in
42.
1942. Where?
Goldsboro.
All right. So how did Wilmington come into the picture?
Dad worked with a uniform company where they've rented the uniforms and oil rags to the service stations. He worked in Goldsboro, and they needed somebody in Wilmington for keeping the maintenance up at the big plant down here on Oleander, right where Oleander joins Worcester, in that curve. There's a spot still there, I think. And Dad got transferred to there, so then we found that house on 51st Street and moved in there. And that's how I got down here.
So Papa Hunt was in World War II.
Yeah.
So after you're born, he's gone, right?
Yeah, he was gone when I was born. Yep. And I think he must have left within 9 months of when I was born. And
Yeah. I guess what I mean is do you remember him coming back? You know what I mean? Like that seems like a kind of a big deal.
Yeah, vaguely. Yeah. But not much. But I remember it was a big time when he got back, and that's when my name got changed, because when he came in the house, I was Russell. But when Dad came back home, then it was Big Russell and Little Russell. And Dad said, let's call him RB for a little while. So they did. So
Yeah.
RB stuck.
I think it stuck.
Yeah.
How about that? I never knew where the RB part
That's
came
what it
in.
was. It was confusing. I was a junior.
Mhm.
Jack would have been the junior, but I told Jack he wasn't good looking enough.
That's funny. Yeah. Jack, when was Jack born?
39.
And Uncle Jimmy?
He's 2 years
45,
younger.
I think.
Yeah.
He's 2 years younger.
2.5
Than
years.
him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, that makes sense. So Papa Hunt was able, I guess, to have leave once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
How about that? I guess I always thought of World War II as being this, obviously it was a major event, but I wouldn't have guessed that there was, all right, you get to go home for 2 weeks or anything like that.
Isn't there something called R&R, rest and relaxation? Maybe they send you home.
There's other words in there too, but that's what they call it.
Yeah. From a psychological, like human psychology standpoint, surely you got to pull these guys away from the death and mayhem and craziness of war
Yeah.
and get that head reset a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Man, it makes sense. You see it in the movies. I guess I just never applied it to real life.
Your own family.
Mm-hmm. So, born in Goldsboro, moved here. When did you end up back in Goldsboro?
I joined the Air Force, and
I mean, as a like, when did you leave 51st Street and go back? Didn't you live in in Goldsboro?
Yeah. That was, we moved to 51st Street in 1958.
Oh, okay. So,
I left there, joined the military in 61, September 61, and went to Texas for boot camp, and then went to Montgomery, Alabama for just about a year. And my grandmother put in for a humanitarian reassignment so I could help grandmama and her brother, who was legally blind. I could live with them and help them out. So that went through a humanitarian reassignment. So I got transferred to Goldsboro, and then I drove back and forth from Goldsboro to Wilmington every weekend for like 3.5 years. I think I missed one weekend. So
wow.
I knew the road real good. Yeah.
So, in that, you're born and grew up in Goldsboro. I've seen the picture by my aunt's house that she grew up in. Did y'all live in the place you showed me in the picture? I'll have it up on the screen.
Yeah. 913A, Fairview Homes.
Mm-hmm.
It was a housing project for poor people lived.
Are you talking about the nice, big, beautiful house?
No. I know Mama Hunt lived there, but I know you lived at the project home.
Yeah.
When you were born, was that your residence? No. Do you know where that place was?
Yep. It was on Audubon Avenue in Goldsboro. I showed Wendy and Rita the other day where I drove my tricycle off the porch there.
Yeah.
And got hurt a little bit, just cry, you know.
Yeah.
Yep. So then moved from there to Seymour Johnson Homes, I think. Yep. Because there we had a coal bin. It was a long building with like A, B, C, D, F, G, H, I, J maybe. And that's how many in that long cinder block building. We lived in one of those and had a coal bin outside, and I emptied the coal bin one time because we didn't use coal anymore, and cleaned it out and got a pet rabbit and kept that rabbit in the coal bin. And I couldn't wait to get home, and Mom would give me a carrot or a potato or something, and I'd get in the coal bin and feed the rabbit. You know, so
That must be where Cohen got her love.
There it
letters.
is. We found it. Yep.
So I love that.
Was the war the reason why you ended up living at Seymour Johnson?
No.
That was after the war, wasn't
Dad was a mechanic in Goldsboro, and we lived there. It was the cheapest place he could find to live, and my grandmama lived out there also, so that worked good.
Yeah.
Yep. And then we moved from there out to Fairview Homes, and lived there from probably 10 years old to 16 years old, and had a wonderful time at the poor homes, at Fairview Poor Homes, because they had a big recreation area, and we could all go out there and choose up and play mainly football and baseball. And we were poor, but we were happy.
Yeah. The lawnmower rental, is that era at time?
Yeah, that's where I started making some money. We would go to the office, and the guy at the office knew us. He knew what we were up to, and he helped us out. He would get the mowers. They were a real mower, no motor. You pushed it, and it would cut. And he'd check 2 or 3 and give us one that the teeth sounded right, you know, and when it would cut good. And I would go and cut the front yard of those places for 10 cents and the backyard for 15, because the backyard was bigger. So if I did 2 yards and I had 50 cents, I was loaded. I was good. That way in the summer I could go to the pool and swim as long as I wanted to and get out and get a drink and dabs or a moon pie or whatever.
Yeah.
So that was success. That was happiness.
Yeah. Was that pretty available as far as how often could you go rent the?
Anytime you wanted, just during operation hours over there from 8 to 5 probably.
Yeah.
Out at the office. And it was a nice setup. I looked at that garage or that opening to that building the other day, and it seemed a lot smaller than it was when I used to walk up to it
Yeah.
and get the lawnmower, because I was looking at it from a different altitude, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Huh. The toothpick tree. Did that?
Oh, yeah. One of the boys got a hatchet for Christmas. And we wanted to cut something. So we went down the railroad track, and there was a sycamore tree that was probably this big and straight up. It just grown perfectly straight up and had limbs about this big probably. But it was tall. It was probably 60 feet.
Mm-hmm.
So we would shimmy up that tree and take that hatchet with us and sit on the limb and chop the limb on the right side, you know.
Yeah.
So, so the limb would just hang down, and then you'd chop till it fell down.
Yeah.
And then we'd move up to the next one. So we did that till we cut all the limbs off of that tree. It was very visible. We could see it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So we named that the toothpick tree,
Yeah.
because that's what it looked like.
How long did it take you to get all those limbs off?
Probably a month.
So you just went when you could and cut off a limb or two?
Yeah, when we were bored, we'd go chop a limb off.
Mm-hmm.
Shimmy up.
That was the beginning of your tree service.
Yeah, we didn't get paid a thing for that, but it was
Yeah.
a good experience. But right across the fence, there were some big pecan trees, and I think I was probably 11 or 12, and there was a little store across the railroad tracks, about 50 yards from where we lived. And those pecan trees were just out in the field there, and we would go over to the pecan trees. We is mainly me, and climb up a pecan tree. You pick up all you could on the ground, but then you look up and you see all those pecans up there. That's what I did. I thought, man, if I could get them down, so I'd climb, shimmy up the tree, and keep going up to where I could put a foot out on the limb and get stabilized and hold the limb and just shake it. And it sounded so good hearing those pecans falling out of the husk
Yeah.
and bouncing around and going down. And then I'd ease down that limb. If there was another limb I could go out on from there, I would, and shake enough. Then I'd go down and pick them up and take them across the railroad tracks and sell them at Biggs. I'm pretty sure it was Biggs, B-I-G-G-S, Biggs store. And it seems like we got 2 or 3 cents a pound for them.
Mm.
And that was good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Looking back on it, do you question if they weighed it correctly? Or was that
They
more-
probably did.
Yeah.
They were nice people.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's nice that there was a time that everybody was, not that people aren't trustworthy now, but it seems like it was more common.
Yeah. Never even questioned it at all.
Yeah.
Just whatever they said, that was it.
Yeah.
And we'd pick up bottles and take bottles for a penny a piece and get money for that. And then it went up to 2 cents a piece, and boy, that was big time when it went up 2 cents a piece. We keep the ditches in place, clean the bottles.
Right.
Have to clean them up and take them over there. Yeah. And there was a mud hole over there. And one day I was going by that mud hole in the road, and I spotted a dime or a nickel. And I got down to get that. Then I saw a penny, and I thought, man. So I took my hands and ran them down in the water, in the mud. And I ended up finding almost $1 in change. I remember there was a 50-cent piece and a quarter. Man, I was so tickled. That was big time money.
What in the world? Why do you think it was in there?
I don't know. I don't know how in the world it got there.
It was a pothole in the road?
Yeah.
You
It
think?
was just a dished out road where the cars would go through and splash the water out. It was probably 8 or 10 feet across,
Yeah.
but shallow, you know.
I wonder if, you drop coins out of your pocket into the bottom of the car, and then you hit that bump or whatever, and it falls
Yeah.
out of the car.
I
maybe?
don't know how. I don't know how it happened, but it was weird. How could it all be right there together?
Yeah.
That reminds me, cars a long time ago used to, some of them, you could see the ground through. I don't know what happened. It was just a deteriorated
Yeah.
car. But you could, coins could have fell through the car.
Yeah, I don't know. There's no rational answer to that.
Right. Yeah. Huh.
I didn't question it, where it came from, as long as it's there.
You didn't spend any time trying to find the owner?
No, nope.
Yeah.
And that was where we had where they were building the house. And they had the foundation poured, I reckon, and had the lumber delivered. So there was several stacks of lumber, and it snowed, but probably so deep. And we were over there throwing snowballs, and I was behind one set of lumber, kind of like this table. And Jimmy and another boy was across from us, like probably 40 feet away or 50 feet, you know, not far.
Mm-hmm.
And we were throwing snowballs back and forth, having the biggest time. And I realized that you throw the snowball and then you duck, and then you make another one. And then you look up, and then they throw a snowball at you, and then you duck, and then you throw one back, and they duck, and then they stick the head back up.
Mm-hmm.
So I got timing right on that. So I made 2 snowballs, and I threw one at Jimmy, and then I picked up the other one while that one was still in the air, and Jimmy was ducked. I picked up the other one and threw it right behind that one, and Jimmy popped up, and it smacked him right in the face, and he was, and he was going home, and I had to run catch him and talk him out of going and tell him, Mama, because I'd be in big trouble.
That reminds me of you. I think it was the 3 of you in maybe Uncle Robert. That name comes to mind.
It was my grandmother's blind brother when we were playing with his cards.
That's right. Yeah, you weren't supposed to be playing.
He had special cards with big numbers on them because he was legally blind. And the one thing we could not do, it was sacred, was bother his cards. And he'd be in the other room, and we'd go in his room and play around his room. And he came in there, and we had his cards on the bed playing with his cards. And when you're blind, you know where everything is by feel. And he came in there and said, "What you boys doing? You got my cards, hadn't you? You got my cards." "No, no." And he pulled his drawer out and ran his hand back there, and he felt where the cards were supposed to be, and they were gone. So he pulled his belt off, and he said, "I'm going to whale the daylights out of every one of you." And we were scared to death. You know, old man, he had that belt, and he grabbed Jack first and beat Jack good, and then turned Jack loose, and he got hold of Jimmy and beat Jimmy. And I was at the back side of the room, and then we were all screaming. No matter who he was beating, we were all screaming. So it's hard to keep up who's who. And he reached out and he got Jack again. And he got Jack and beat Jack again. So he knew he had us all because that was 3.
Oh, that's terrible.
I know it.
Poor Uncle Jack.
And we got his cigars out of that drawer. And being blind, he didn't rotate the cigars. And we got an old cigar and went outside and smoked it. Oh, we got feeling so bad. We were all sick. It was mainly me and Jimmy, and we were so sick. And Mama came out there and was trying to figure out what was wrong with us, and she saw we had smoked a cigar. And Jimmy looked up at her, and he was so pitiful. And he said, "Mama, will I ever be well again?"
He thought he'd ruined himself.
Yeah, he thought he was going to be like that the rest of his life. Yeah. Good times.
Mm-hmm. Oh, goodness. What about you, Ma? Any fun childhood stories?
Michael was about 8 or 9, and there was a bucket of water, not a bucket, a barrel of water beneath the tree in the back of the Oleandra house.
Magnolia tree, easy to climb.
Yeah, and I was sitting up in the top of the tree, and Michael didn't hear me. So he came, and he took the kitty cat, and he dunked it in water, and he flew it around like an airplane by its tail. And I said, "Michael."
The voice from up above.
Yes, I was trying to sound like God. And he looked around, and he thought he must have been hearing things, so he did it again. He said, "Michael." He finally saw me up in the tree.
Just trying to steer him right.
Yeah, I was trying to sound like God. I was looking down, watching him.
How far apart age-wise, you and Aunt Teresa and Uncle Mike?
Me and Teresa were about 2 years and 4 months, and me and Michael were about 7 years apart.
Gotcha. So that put you and Aunt Teresa pretty close in age, like
Yeah.
Keenan and Cohen.
Yeah, we played together all the time and played paper dolls. And one day, while we were playing paper dolls, we got real mad at each other and tore up each other's paper dolls. And later, when we tried to play paper dolls again, we felt really bad about it because we had to put tape on our paper dolls.
So you're 7 when you were 5 when Uncle Mike was born, or 7?
5 or he was born in 52 and I was born in 46. That is 6 years.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and so I guess that does make you the caretaker. Yeah, when he's 6 and 7, and you're 12 and 13.
Yeah.
14.
I was the one that, like, when y'all were little and you'd come in, Mama. I remember when y'all were finally old enough to not come in crying. You'd just come in and show me your hurt, and we'd put a Band-Aid on it.
Back at it.
Yeah.
Where'd your mom work?
Century Mills.
Yeah, Century Mills. And she went to work about the time right before we got home from school. And she would stay out till about 11, and we were in the bed. So we saw her for breakfast every morning, except for Saturdays and Sundays. And on Saturdays and Sundays, we would go to see my cousins in Leland. And we had fun seeing the cousins.
That was pretty consistent.
Yeah, every Saturday we would go. So that's why when we all get together and Kenan and Cohen get to see Josiah and Naomi, it's so nice that they
it makes
get
sense.
to play.
What did Granddaddy do?
He was first an
Upholster.
No,
tailor?
Tailor. He was a tailor. He went to school for that. Then he went to school for refrigeration. And right after he graduated from that school of refrigeration, they changed how refrigerators were made.
Yeah, they quit using ice and went to electricity, I think.
And he finally went into the antique business, and that's what that shop is next to the store.
Didn't he try didn't you guys go to Chicago for like a minute?
Oh, yeah. We went to Chicago when I was in the 2nd grade, and he was going to work with his brothers in the pizza business. There was 2 brothers that had pizza places, and we went to the pizza place one time and had the best pizza. And
Uncle Tony?
No, this was Uncle Pat,
Okay.
and I've never had a pizza that tasted like that again. And I think what was different about it, it was loaded with fennel seed, and I just happened to like fennel seed. It was in the sausage.
That pizza you and I had in Don Antonio's in Manhattan.
Yeah.
You remember that pizza?
Uh-huh.
Was it similar in any way, or just another different?
No, it wasn't. This
Different,
pizza was just so unique. Never, like I said, I've never tasted anything like it since.
I remember eating one at their house when they were visiting at your house, and it was so good. It had fennel seed in it. That was kind of a little secret ingredient or something.
Yeah.
How long did you stay in Chicago, you said?
I went to part of 2nd grade there because I remember leaving my nice 2nd grade house in Wilmington and going there. And we'd have to walk I could walk to school because I could see it, but the snow was about a foot deep. So being 7 years old, walking through a foot of snow wasn't fun. And the smell of Chicago was an industrial chemical smell. The whole town smelled like chemicals.
I haven't done a lot of homework on that, but I know that just from watching documentaries, air quality was not like in the 40s and 50s production. Just build it.
That's right.
And whatever. And it wasn't until later that people were like, hey, we one planet, you know. So, yeah, I'm sure the air quality in those big cities was terrible during that time.
We stayed at my daddy's parents' house, and they were both alive at that time. And he was real proud of a fig tree that he had on the side of the house. But in the winter, he dug a hole beside the fig tree, buried the fig tree, and then dug it back up in the spring and set it back up.
Really?
And it produced figs.
Wow, that's crazy.
A fig tree is something very Italian.
Yeah.
So he had to have a fig tree.
I'm surprised that it would survive. I wonder where he even got that idea.
I don't know.
Family knowledge passed down.
Yeah.
That's the sort of things that don't get, you know.
It looks like they would dig halfway under it or something and leave part of the roots intact and bend it over and have it cut short and then just pile dirt on it. I don't know how to do it. That's the way I'd do it if I was going to try that.
Yeah.
I would have thought they would put stuff over it,
Yeah.
you know.
Cut it down low and just pile stuff on top. But whatever.
Yeah, it works, right?
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's awesome.
There's probably different ways of doing it.
Yeah. That he came from Italy. How about my mama's side?
Her side came from, I'm not sure if it was England or German. One relative said it was Germany, and one relative said it was England. So I don't know.
I wonder if it was both, like the two sides of the family.
Well, I know 2 Hickman brothers came here from somewhere, and there's a Hickman crossroads out in the country, and that's where they settled. And
It's down in Brunswick County right before you get to the state line.
and
On the way
her
to Myrtle Beach.
family was in Leland, and I only knew my grandmama and granddaddy from that side. I don't think I ever met, if I ever met his relatives, and I don't have any kind of genealogy from that side of the family. And I really don't have much from my daddy's side of the family either. So I've got lots from dad's, but I don't have any from mine.
Yeah. Just based on what little bit that I hear from you, it seems like that the Italian side, if he was the kind of guy that would come to a different country and spend the 3 years to get established and then have his family brought over, it seems like there was maybe a little more resources. Like either he had a little bit of money or just had that like make this happen attitude. What was the financial status of my mama's side?
The financial status of my mama's side of the family, they were not rich at all, and I don't remember hearing anybody that had lots of money. But on the Italian side, when they got here, they did good. So
How many brothers and sisters did Granddaddy have?
He had all brothers, no sisters, and there was Pat, Joe, Jimmy, Tony, and my dad, Mike. And on my mama's side, there was all the tomato ladies.
Yeah, Ada, Laveda,
Hilda,
Hilda.
Irene, May, and there was 2 boys. One was Norman that died when he was 16 from appendicitis, and one Laverne, he died when he was in his 30s from cancer.
How about that?
So the 2 boys were lost. It was just the tomato ladies.
What was my mama's name was Gladys. What was her middle name?
Harriet.
Gladys Harriet
Hickman.
Hickman. How about that? I knew the Hickman. I've heard that Hickman is a German name, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm sure we can Google something like
Yeah.
that. Huh. How many? 2 brothers, Laverne and Norman, and 5 sisters? Or she was one of 5?
Let's see. I think it's more than that. May, Irene, Laveda, Gladys, Hilda, and Ada. 6.
So 8 children.
Oh, and 2 children died real young. Catherine, it was one of them, and I'm not sure about the other one.
That was pretty common back in those days.
Yeah, dying in childbirth.
Yeah. And the mom wasn't totally unheard of to hear of a mom dying.
Yeah, the children died when they were, well, the medicine wasn't near as good. Hospitals, penicillin, I don't even know if it had been invented back then.
So if I was going to sit here and imagine the house that my mama grew up in, what does that look like? You did a painting of it, right?
I did a painting.
I'll take a picture of the painting and I'll put it up. But so assuming that we're all now looking at that painting, what's it look like inside?
I don't know, have the slightest idea of what it looked like inside. I do know that there weren't enough bedrooms for the children, so they all just slept in beds together. And I remember them talking about making mattresses, and that's what you wanted me to tell about. That they made feather mattresses and put on the beds, and they didn't have a lot of cover, so they made another feather mattress for the top. So they climbed in between the mattresses, and the floors and the walls weren't insulated, so you could see the chickens running underneath the house. And to sweep floor, you just swept to a crack, and it fell through. And let's see, what else did I tell you about that?
They had an outhouse.
Oh, an outhouse. They had an outhouse forever, because when I was little, I went to their outhouse, and I was just little, so I was always scared I was going to fall in that outhouse. Had to balance on the side.
Yeah. So an outhouse worked, you just filled it up a certain amount and then slid it over a fresh hole?
I guess so, yeah.
Is that how it worked, Dad? Is that...
Probably so. I never was involved in moving those.
Yeah. It seems like if you dig a hole, now you have this pile of dirt next to it. So
Just fill that back in.
yeah, when you slide the outhouse, you take that fresh dirt and put it on the other hole.
You'd have done good at outhouses,
Yeah,
Steve.
I guess I was a plumber, right? Yeah. Ah, that's crazy how much times have changed.
Yeah. When I was about 11 or 12, my Aunt Hilda, for a Christmas present or a birthday present or some occasion, she gave them an inside bathroom. So
Indoor plumbing.
Uh-huh.
Man, guessing what year do you think that would have been?
See, I was 11 and I was born in 46. That would be
55, 57,
Mm-hmm.
57. Getting indoor plumbing.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
And when she died and we were cleaning out the house, there was lots and lots of jars of canned goods that we had to throw away because they were too old. And that's how they kept their food. They grew their food and then they canned it. And they lived off of canned food or their hogs. And I'd guess when they were older and they got Social Security, they probably didn't farm. They went to the grocery store.
Yeah. If you have your fruit or whatever you're going to put in a jar to save for later, it seems like I remember coming in and seeing you and my mama doing this. So you have the hot water on the stove, you put the glass jar in with the stuff in it, and everything gets hot. Then you screw the lid on, and when it cools down, it draws that vacuum on it, and that's it. Is that...
And when you open it, if it doesn't pop, that means it wasn't sealed properly, and you shouldn't eat it.
Was there? Did you put salt or sugar, or was there something you would add to it? It was just that simple.
It was very simple.
When you look at the lids on those, the lid's supposed to be sucked down.
Right.
If you see a jar and the lid's swole up, it's bad.
There's still stuff that you buy now, like peanuts. I think has that lid.
That's vacuum. Yep, it keeps a lot longer in a kind of a vacuum.
Yeah, that makes sense. I looked down and I saw the car door. that was on Oleander Drive?
No. The car door was when I was 2 years old, or 2.5, because Teresa was a baby laying on the front seat. And my daddy was driving, and the door went open. How do you say when
Suicide.
the suicide door?
Isn't that what they're called, Dan?
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyhow,
The door is open in the opposite direction than what you think.
Like a 64 Continental, they open like that. So
he asked me to roll down the window, and being a 2.5 to 3-year-old, I didn't know which was what, so I opened the door rather than rolling up the window, and it sucked me out. And of course, the wind blew me against the door, which saved.
Blew the door out.
Yeah, it held me there, and I was trying to make the car slow down, so I put my toe down to kind of drag to slow the car down. Well, all it did was knock my shoe off and skin my toe. So my daddy gradually came to a stop and came over there and said, "Are you okay?" I said, "I lost my shoe."
so important. The bookstore, you working with Aunt Teresa and Aunt Maria.
Yes, that was fun. Teresa was telling me how they needed help, and I had never even thought about working with Teresa, but I had been in the store, and I thought the store needed organizing. So I told her I would come work with her, and she was tickled. So when I got in there, I cleaned and cleaned and cleaned and organized and organized. And Teresa was so tickled, and the store looked a lot better. But her store, because of economy things like Sam's coming in town and selling things cheap.
Barnes and Noble, I'm sure, was a big hit.
Yes, Barnes and Noble. Then a killer was a discount Christian bookstore that moved in, and but I guess the most memorable thing that happened at the bookstore, Teresa and Maria and I had lots of good times talking, but Teresa wasn't there that day. I think she had gone for a treatment out of town, and we had heard about Kayla, Teresa's granddaughter, being in the shop and a man coming in and robbing her at knife point. And so we were talking about it. Teresa, Maria and I were sitting there talking about it. And Maria looked, and across the street was coming this guy that looked like he was in his late 20s.
Fitted the description.
Yeah, and I didn't know what the description was, so I had not paid any attention. I was just watching Maria act funny, and she said, "I think it's him," and she grabbed her spray.
Mace
or red pepper or
spray,
something. Yeah. Anyhow, she stood like a statue with her hand held down, ready to spray that guy. And I was watching thinking Maria was silly because that looked like a nice guy. How could she accuse this nice guy of being a criminal? And he comes up and he said, "Ladies, give me all your money right now." And he puts a knife on the table. And I laughed. I said, "You got to be." And about the time I was going to say kidding, Maria was right in his face.
How long did it take him to figure out that was a bad idea?
He didn't think about the knife. He just grabbed his head and headed for the door. I guess he was trying to figure out where the door was because he could hardly see. Well, the funny thing was, here's Maria chasing him, still spraying. And he ran across Kerr Avenue over to Planet Fitness, and she's still chasing him. And he goes on back of Planet Fitness, so she stopped and came back. So Maria saved my life.
Yeah, that's interesting that your instinct was to laugh. Yeah.
Well, I just thought, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Robbing a Christian bookstore.
Yeah. Oh man. Aunt Teresa, if you were going to describe to like Keenan doesn't have much memory and Cohen and the kids and stuff, to who is Aunt Teresa, so that they can have an idea.
Okay. Teresa and I grew up together. She was 2.5 years younger. She was my sister. And she and I played together because my daddy didn't like company over. So anytime we wanted to do anything, we did it with each other. And we made all kinds of games, just like Keenan and Cohen did when they were little. They would make a game out of anything. And so did we. And it was fun. And so we were real close. And
Who got married first? You got married
I
first.
got married first, but she got married just a couple of years later. And I had Wendy, and she had Jeff, and then she had Tara, and I had you and Mark.
You know what was a cool equalizer? Is the Sunday spaghetti at my mama's house.
The spaghetti gang.
The spaghetti gang. That whole generation, like how far apart you are, it kind of there was definitely picking. Like we all got picked on at different ages, but when you went to my mama's house, I knew Jeff was going to give me a hard time, but Wendy was giving Jeff a hard time, and like it was just that was a great.
It was part of it. And it was all right.
It was part of it, and it was all right. Yeah, it was awesome.
I think it makes y'all all closer now.
Yeah.
I think that's why I like to do Christmas in the garage, is to maintain that. It's not like every Sunday like the spaghetti, but it's at least once a year.
Yeah. If we were gonna sit right here and make a case for it to try to talk the generations that are coming into doing something like that, that equalizer, that you end up getting close enough that you remember if anybody got a new boyfriend or girlfriend, like it was like all the conversation, because you were involved, so you knew from week to week what was going on. That would be one neat thing, is how it was a small investment of time, but the whole family ended up being this one big group, and
I think it was my Uncle Tony that named us the Spaghetti Gang.
Is that right? Yeah. Do you remember that one picture? I can't remember who did it, but it had the bubbles and the thoughts that were all.
Yeah, the rocks in something or whatever. Put poison in
I
this.
still have that picture.
Yeah.
Good. I'll take a picture of it and I'll put it on here.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh man, that picture, it kind of did sum up
It did sum up everything.
Yeah, those little attitudes. There was always a cake. Yeah, it's important. I'm so glad it was part of what we did.
Yeah.
Yeah. The hunt side, we had gatherings. Uncle Jimmy would get a place down at the beach, the Smaltz. Yeah, Betty Smalt's place. And then we started doing the Station 1 gig, so that was a pretty consistent.
Yeah, it was a good one.
Yeah. But I wish there was a way I could sell it that would make future generations see it, or maybe they're already doing it, and I'm preaching to the choir. But it was such a valuable time. I loved it.
You remember what it cost to stay the month of October, maybe the first year, October, November, the whole month?
Of Station 1 was like $920. And it went up.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. I can't remember how much. I think it went up close to $2,000 the last time we stayed there.
During that time when we were staying at Station 1, I think it was when we stayed in October. We went out and fished on the bridge over Banks Channel, and I carried a couple of rods and carried a rod, and I'd caught some live bait, some big mullet minnows. I had a mullet minnow that long, probably
Yeah.
too big to fish with for most people. And I had stuff rigged up, and I showed Mom how to walk along and sit it beside the pilings, and she wouldn't do right. She wouldn't do nothing right. So I went ahead and fished, and she wanted to stay right there. So I said, okay, well, if you want to stay here, I'm going to put it right down there beside the piling. So I did. And I went down the bridge, and I wasn't catching nothing up. I was across the traffic on the other side, and she said, RB, my line's not doing right. So I wound in and ran over there. I said, what do you mean? She said, it's going upstream. So a flounder had picked it up and was swimming upstream with it. So I coached her a little bit on it, and I took the rod, and sure enough, there was something on there, a flounder, I thought. So I kind of set the hook and handed her the rod, and isn't that the way it went? And you wound and wound and wound till you got up close to the bridge, and then I took it, and a Mexican ran out there, and we had the flounder up where you could see him under the lights.
Mm-hmm.
And the Mexican was going to grab the line. I said, don't touch that line.
Yeah.
So he backed up. He was going to hand line him up.
Yeah.
Well, it was an 8-pound flounder. You don't hand line them up.
Yeah.
So
Like a
we
doormat.
walked up the
Yeah.
bridge and slid him up on the sand, and I ran down there and got him and ran up there, and I was going to go across the street and not let anybody see, because if anybody saw, you'd be a lot of people down there fishing, so I
Yeah.
would keep it secret. So I had that flounder holding him tight and waiting for the traffic to clear, and I took off with the flounder. Well, he flipped, and I could not hold him, and he hit the pavement and stuck. I couldn't get him off the pavement quick, and the cars were stopping with all the lights on it, so everything I didn't want to happen happened.
Yeah.
So I finally got him up, but I ended up taking that flounder up to the fish market and asked them, how do you suggest cooking this thing? And they said, debone it and stuff it with crab meat and put Old Bay seasoning in it. So I said, all right, debone it for me if you can. They said, yep, we'll fix it. So they fixed it all. And we had the best supper up there.
So good.
I remember that. It
Dude.
was good.
And
We did just
family
like they
came
said.
in. My mama came, and I remember Brent coming, and different people, Michael and Robin.
Yeah.
We had the whole flounder laid out on a platter, right?
Mm-hmm.
And had it cut open with the crab meat inside like they suggested.
Mm-hmm.
Man,
That
it
was-
smelled so good when it was cooking.
That was when we were in Unit 8B. Am I right?
You think? I don't know.
Yeah. It was the first time, wasn't it? The first.
It might have been.
Station one.
Seemed like the first one was October.
Yeah. I remember me and Mark were going to cut school, quit, not go to school and go surfing. And that morning, Dad smelled a rat, and he was like, "You boys going to school?" "Yes, sir." "Yeah, we're going to school." And then we didn't. He was so mad. You were way more mad that we lied than about skipping school. If we'd have just said, "No, we're going surfing," you'd be like, "Okay." Yeah. Another time, not far from there, we did the same thing to go fishing. We went to landfall and caught all those great big live bass or largemouth bass in that pond. And he smelled a rat, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm going to school." And me and Mark were in there fishing, and he pulled up because he knew Mark was there. And there I was, and we saw him pull up and then backed out. I'm like, yeah.
Well, how about the time we went out of town, and Mark was supposed to be in school, and the next day he was in the front page of the paper
Yeah, on the news.
surfing.
Yeah.
Cutting a wave. Yeah.
Y'all were out of town when I fell out of the tree.
Yes, we were.
Yeah, we were in Maine.
And knowing that you were okay after we came back, I was glad you didn't tell us.
It would have messed up the trip.
Yeah.
That was my thought. Yeah.
And we would have been in a real big hurry to get back. But coming back and seeing you were still alive
Yeah.
and finding out, it was a lot better.
Uncle Jimmy came by, and it was his birthday. Is his birthday July 17th? Yep. So he came by. I was hurting and in the bathtub. And Jeff Shingleton came in there and was like, hey, man, I think your uncle's here. I was like, all right. So I got out, came in there, and I hurt so bad. You know that island that's in your kitchen? I just propped on that and stood there and talked to him. And he asked me if I was okay, and teenagers act weird anyway, so I guess he didn't know what was going on. But we sat there and talked, but that was all I could do was just prop up on that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, knowing what you know now, would you have gone to the hospital, or should you have gone to the hospital?
Yeah, I absolutely should have gone to the hospital. Can you think of anything else, Dad?
Yep. I was thinking when we were in Goldsboro, when I was going to college up there, I used to catch snakes and sell the snakes to the zoo. And Rita said, how about if I go snake hunting with you? So we sold the snakes for 50 cents a pound, and we divided the money up. So she wanted to go so we could divide the money up, keep it in the house.
Yeah.
So I said, yeah, you would do that?
That's a good idea.
She said, yeah. So she'd do it. So we went up on the News River and put the boat in, and I showed Rita how to run the boat.
Yeah. Tiller operated?
Yeah,
Yes.
You know, you turn it this way to go fast and this way to slow down, you know. So
That is so confusing. I still don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
well, she was doing pretty good, and I told her when I see a snake, you can't look at the snakes. If you look at the snakes, they usually go in the water, and the snakes come out and lay on the limbs early in the spring, like April and May. And they lay on the limbs and they mate. So a lot of times there'd be 2 or 3 snakes on the limb. So you catch them and put them in a bag and take them to the zoo and get 50 cents a pound. And typically you get like 30 pounds or so of snakes.
Yeah.
It's fun and it's money. So she was doing good. And we came to a place where there's a little creek coming into the river, and a couple of trees had fallen down, one about this high and then another one about this high behind it. Well, I thought we can go in there, and the snakes were on the back log. So I told Rita, when we go in there, we'll slow down, and I'll duck under the first log, and then I'll come up and grab them off that back log. I had gloves on and something on my arms to keep them from biting so hard on the arms. And she remembered everything perfect, except when I went under the first log and stood up to catch the snakes, she turned it off in the wrong direction, you know? So the boat took off again, and I'm right there grabbing the snakes, and the log hits me and knocks me down in the boat.
But he had the snakes.
I didn't turn the snakes loose because I had like $3 or $4 worth of snakes in my hands.
Yeah.
So I'm knocked down in the bottom of the boat with the gas cans in front of Rita, and I'm holding the snakes, you know. And finally, she got the motor turned in the right direction and idled down and put them in the bag.
It's a wonder you didn't get bit all in the face, you know. Them things
I know.
Yeah, I have this picture of him upside down with snakes all in his hands.
Oh my gosh.
You don't turn them snakes loose. That's money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think any sane person would have just thrown the snakes out of the boat or something. I don't know.
Any sane person wouldn't have been there in the first place.
Yeah. Speaking of snakes, I got to hear the snake college experience.
Oh, yeah. When I first started, it was forestry school. The first year, they wanted us just for 1 hour credit, pick any subject that's related to forestry and just do a little seminar on it. So I thought, well, I'll do it on snakes and first aid for snake bite. So I went out to the zoo and told the guy that runs the zoo, George Chicumbo. I told him what I was doing. He said, yeah, you know where the aquariums are, you know where the snakes are, get what you want. So I went and got a few harmless snakes, and I got a copperhead and the biggest rattlesnake you had, which is about 4.5 foot long. Good size, you know, about that big around probably.
Yeah.
And I took them to school, and I did the little seminar, and there's like probably 40, 45 people in big classroom where they got a little podium that you get up on to do it, you know. And I had the snakes up there, and everybody was, it attracted a lot of attention, snakes, you know, especially rattlesnake and copperhead.
Yeah.
So people that weren't even in the class came in just to just check it out, So I took the rattlesnake out of the aquarium up on the podium and got my friend Clip Davis, that has Seeger's Fence Company down, used to have it. Well, we were going to school together. So Clip came up, and I pinned I had a snake stick, and I pinned the rattlesnake down and picked him up and got Clip to hold the glass. So he held the glass on the table, and I hung the snake's fangs over the glass and then massaged his glands with his fangs open, and that releases the venom. So,
Yeah.
so that worked good. So I had that in the glass sitting up there. Put the snake back in the thing, and I was talking about first aid, sucking the poison out. And one of the guys from New Jersey, I believe, he said if you suck that poison out, if you swallow any of it, it'll kill you, because poison is poison. He said it just like that. Poison is poison. You can't play with it. If you swallow it, you're dead. Well, I said, no, it won't hurt you if you swallow it. It's got to get in your bloodstream. He said, poison's poison. Well, half the class, they were looking at him and they were looking at me and like, who's right? I said, I'll tell you what. And I reached over and got the glass and turned it up so everybody could see, and the venom's running down. And it's thick. It's like 30 weight oil maybe. Mm-hmm. So I stuck my index finger in there and took it out and did that. And I said, if I don't finish this, then you're right. So I kept on talking. Everybody's waiting for me to die.
Mercy.
But I knew it wouldn't kill you. I'd read up on it, and we'd caught snakes, and when we had snakes in bags, any of the snakes that bit themselves or bit another one or whatever, those snakes that got bit would die. But when a snake bites something and swallows it, the venom's in whatever he swallows, and it don't hurt him.
Yeah.
So I figured that's the proof. So
That makes perfect sense, really.
yeah, so I rationalized that out, and it worked.
Took a risk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell about the next day they asked you to do
Oh,
it
yeah,
again.
they wanted me to do it again. One of my good buddies, Bob Goodman, he said, RB, can you do that again tomorrow? A lot of people want to come in and see that. I said, all right. So I did it again, and then the whole place was packed, and some of the teachers, they were lining the walls. It was like a circus show in there.
Yeah.
So I took the other snake out, and had it on the stage and all.
Yeah.
So it's a big deal.
I'd like to have been standing in that room and
Uh-huh.
seen that whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Well, thank you guys for coming and doing the first ever legacy interview.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're excited about it.
I think it's going to be a lot of fun to put it together, put the pictures in it, and have this thing that we can give around to the family.
Yeah.
I think it'll be fun to have, and we'll come back and maybe do another one. Maybe we'll just start doing them like once a year or something.